All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited. Actually, I'm really excited to talk about hormones. I don't know if you can feel it, but it's been one of those things, for years I have wandered, learned, and then I was also told, Chris and I were both told initially years ago when we started to learn about the functional nutritional side of things, we were told not to really talk about hormones. We were told to work on the person's nutrition and the digestion and so on and so forth. And that's very important. But as I am about to welcome my 51st birthday next month, I'm very excited. Chris said, "You're going to be 51." And I said, "Oh my God, I'm so excited." I am just more and more engaged with this topic of hormones, and I've been supporting my hormones for a while, and I can truly tell you that I feel a whole lot different. Is it like 180? Probably not, because I generally eat well. I take good supplements and I take things to support my my natural producing hormones, right? But the things that we've been doing and things that we've been learning in the last little over a year, but really putting our energy into not just learning, but practicing, completely changed my life. And I think Chris can feel the same way. So that's why I'm excited. I couldn't just keep it as something I'm doing in my household anymore. I wanted to share with all of you, and mostly women. I'm sorry. I think it's mostly women that are showing. And if you don't mind putting your pictures up, I would love it. There are only a handful of you that have your cameras up, but we have nearly 50 people so far already here. So please, you put your face up. You're not recorded. Don't you worry about it.
So
It's just
Masami,
nice,
Masami, I just wanted to
Yeah.
say, because this is a topic that we just heard a statistic today, which is that 80% of the challenges that come from hormones in people's bodies are experienced by women. But about 80% of the funding and research is done on men's hormones and bodies. And so hormones, as you'll hear from us today, are something that affect absolutely 100% of us, no exceptions. And we'll share some of our own experiences here and there as we go too, because like Masami, I have also benefited tremendously from what we're going to be talking about with you tonight and some of the things that you've heard us talk about other times. And it's so important to understand that even for men, hormones are so important. And I'm living proof of that, because I have absolutely reduced my own biological age by attending to my hormones over the last few years. So I'll hand it back to Masami there.
Yeah. So I wanted to actually quickly ask all of you, how do you feel when you think of hormones? And I'm talking, yes, I mean, we produce hundreds of hormones, just so you know, our bodies. Even vitamin D is hormone, right? As you know, melatonin is a hormone of some kind. And then it's also neurotransmitters too. But we produce tons of hormones. But when you think of your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, okay, so we're talking perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause things here. So I think we only have maybe our friend Steve and you, Chris, might be the only men in this
There
group,
might
but
be actually one or two others, but we're definitely underrepresented.
and it's okay, because I really want to support women, to be honest. And by supporting women, world will be a better place, right? So right off the bat, I would love to know, how do you feel about your hormones? Have they been giving you some joy or pain, sorrow? I mean, I think we have all these different feelings around hormones, because we were even taught not to talk about it. But how could you not talk about hormones when the hormones are messengers of your life? So, just hopefully by the end of this talk, that you can appreciate hormones, but know how to support your own inner body so that the hormones can do their jobs. They want to do their jobs, but we are not allowing them to do their jobs. And I think you're going to learn some of that tonight. Okay. And right off the bat, we will be talking about other like hormones like estrogen and things like that. But I wanted to just start out by saying estrogen is the oldest hormone that's ever been found. How would you call it, Chris? what would you call
It's
estrogen as?
in terms of biological evolution, estrogen is the first known hormone to be found in biological organisms. So in terms of evolutionary time, that's the first one that we see in the fossil record. It's the first one that we see in primitive animals that produce hormones.
Right. So basically, when you're looking at your estrogen, I want you to remember that this world did not start with Adam and Eve, but started with Eve. And maybe Adam came a little later. So I just want you to know that first off, okay? We really need to bring up the feminine energy up, and we all deserve to feel better, because I think this is why more and more people are talking about it. New York Times had the huge article about, how we've been misleading women. We shouldn't be suffering like this. And like Chris said, most of the studies have been done with men in mind. Even in fact, women are the ones that are struggling with hormones, because our hormones go through so many changes, so much more than men. So, men, oftentimes I've had men will say, even Chris have said, I don't even understand why you are having so much problems with this, or how come you can't digest certain things, or how come you have more aches and pains? And, because we go through these rhythms so much more. We know how to surf the world, okay? We are more equipped than men to surf the world.
And
So
if
I
I
just
could
want
add
you
to
to know.
that, if I
Yeah,
could add to that for men, so the research, like I mentioned, is mostly based on men's bodies, in part because it's easier, because men's bodies go through their hormonal cycles about once a day. And so it's easier to study. Whereas women's bodies, as we know, they go through in a more or less monthly pattern of that same hormone cycle, but it's stretched out and it has so many different variances than what we see with men's bodies. So unfortunately, our medical system and our thinking about hormones and all sorts of other conditions related to hormones are based on essentially treating women's bodies as if they're malfunctioning male bodies. And so we have to move past that idea also as we go through this and understand what it takes to get the hormones in your body to work the way that they need to work to make your body function correctly, male
right,
or female.
right. So women are not male bodies minus the penis. That's not the definition of women. All right. So let's start there. And we're going to start sharing the screen. As you know, we always create some information so you can learn. So let's see. I think this is the one. So Chris, maybe let's get you started with you.
Okay.
Is
Yeah.
that showing up okay?
Yep. Looks good. I'll jump right into that.
Okay, good.
So we kind of already led to this idea here, but hormones are so vitally important. The one thing that you want to remember here is that hormones are signaling molecules. So you can think of them like messengers, and they're telling all of the cells in our body how to function properly. So we'll get into what that means in a little bit here as we go. But I want to draw your attention to this list. I'm not going to read the whole thing, maybe just the categories, because usually when we say hormones, we're only thinking of a couple of these categories. So the sex hormones are the ones that usually are the top of everyone's list: estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. But we have all of these other vitally important hormones that also have to get their signals to the cells to tell them what to do. The stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, digestive hormones like ghrelin and leptin and insulin, endocrine hormones from other glands like the thyroid, the pituitaries, the parathyroid, the liver. Almost every organ in our body, our skin, everything produces its hormones that need to communicate across the body. And then we have other things like Masami mentioned. We have vitamin D. We have neurotransmitters like melatonin and serotonin and oxytocin and things like human growth hormone. So there's this whole range of hormones that we absolutely need communicating with our cells. So what is the most important thing about the cells is what we're going to get into.
So before we get into that, I just wanted to quickly tell you, we need to stop vilifying estrogen, okay? Estrogen is basically what made us come to life, okay? So first of all, let's know that this is the oldest hormone. and evolutionary, like Chris said, in evolutionary terms. It's the oldest. This is where we come from. And more cell receptors than any other hormone. So it communicates all throughout your body. They have receptor sites in the heart, receptor sites in the gut. They're everywhere. And then also estrogen is anti-inflammatory to your body. It protects your brain, especially the hippocampus area, which is connected to your memory. So the volume of your hippocampus actually starts to go down as you get older. All right. So that means your brain is shrinking, but estrogen keeps say the term, am I saying that word? Okay. Volume.
Yeah, the hippocampal volume. So that part of your brain that's responsible for storing memories long term, that really informs who you are as an individual.
Yeah. So it's so important for the health of your brain. And the sad thing is that more women are dealing with Alzheimer's right now, right? So we really need to be looking at why women are being impacted with Alzheimer's and why women are more impacted by depression and anxiety and antidepressants that we're taking. Far more number of women take than men, okay? And also it protects, so the estrogen protects you from leaky gut because it's so helpful for the lining of the gut, protects gut of mother and fetus. So during pregnancy, estrogen becomes very important. Estrogen also impacts positively if it's, if you have the right amount, it'll help you to manage pain, and it can help you to stabilize your moods and cognition, so the brain functions, gut, and motivation. So if you're starting to feel like, I don't have the motivation anymore, I'm just having lots of mood swings and things like that, we need to look at the balance of the estrogen. And we wanted to show you this beautiful picture where this is a singular cell, but we have trillions of these. And what we're going to be focusing on today is these little antennas. We're calling them the antennas. They could be called these could be villi. Okay, and what that means is they increases the surface of the cells so they can receive nutrients, information more. But we'll be talking about these little, we're going to call them the little antennas, or they're like the cell towers, or they could be the satellite dishes, what we're going to be talking about. These guys are the mitochondria. This is the nucleus. This is where your DNA information is stored. So just kind of keep this beautiful image in mind. Okay. And then let's go to here, and I'm going to hand it over to Chris.
Yeah. So like I was starting to ask the question before is, how do the hormones communicate with the cells? That's the big question. So on this picture here, you'll see that receptors are the key. So there are these things on the cells and inside of the cells that are called receptors. And just like the name sounds like, they receive signals that are in the fluids of the body, outside and inside. And hormones are one kind of those signals that are called, in general, they're called ligands, which is anything that will bind to that receptor. It could be a mineral, it could be a hormone, it could be a neurotransmitter, it could even be a toxic substance. And so what happens is these receptors on the cells are basically specialists. They are made to receive a very limited number of items. So the hormones depend on having a very specific receptor that they're trying to communicate with on the cell or inside of the cell. But the tricky part is other things might also need to use that same receptor. And when the hormone binds with the receptor, it's kind of like if you imagine a ship coming into the dock, and it's coming into its dock, and it has to be just the right size at the right speed in the right location at the right time. And when it docks, it's going to send that message, and there will be a whole cascade of chemicals into the cell, into the nucleus, into the DNA to tell that cell how to act in response to what's happening in the environment or what's happening inside of the cell or around the cell. And so this signaling is so important to let the cell know what it needs to do right at that moment. And so, like I mentioned, there are many kinds of signalers besides hormones. There are other kinds of proteins, neurotransmitters, things like nitric oxide that we breathe in or produce in our blood. There are other kinds of steroid molecules, other kinds of nutrients, things that can poison us, like antigens that are produced in our body, or toxins or medications. And even sunlight can create a cascading reaction of signals to these receptors. So this is a very quick entry into the importance of understanding that, one, we have these receptors, they receive only certain signals, and that they can sometimes get blocked. And so we're going to talk about this a little bit more as we go. So I'll hand it back to, I think we're back to you, Masami.
Yeah, it's good. So I just want to reiterate just a little bit. We're going to be spending some time on these receptor sites. So as you can see, there are many, many kinds of receptor sites. So they're all looking for these guys, or it could be hormones, like Chris said, it could be nitric oxide, it could be neurotransmitters, because these are the messengers. They're swimming around and looking for just the right match. Okay, but we're going to be talking about these guys. These are the receptor sites, because I see often with some of my clients that are taking powder form of nitric oxide things, because, you know, Dr. Christian Northrup and some other people are really, really pushing the nitric oxide. I get that the nitric oxide is very, very important molecule, but what I want to really have you think about is that you could be throwing all kinds of awesome nutrients into your system, but if the receptor sites are not receiving the signals, or they can't capture the signals, then you can't communicate deep into the cells, because once they receive it, they shimmer and they wiggle and they dance and they begin to share the information down to the middle of your cell, basically into the nucleus, and then communicates with your DNA, communicates and basically moves the mitochondria. Okay, so I just want you to know that we're going to be spending time on these receptor sites. And the image that came to me, it was this. You know me, I'm always thinking in images. That's part of, I think, being intuitive. You think a lot of stuff in images. So this was what I was thinking about. So think of this spaceship, or the satellite system is sending the signals. So think of this as the hormone. It is sending the signal, looking for the receptor sites on this outer edge of the earth, but it's having a hard time communicating, or maybe the receptor sites are not quite matching up and things like that. So, but if it goes well, it will have a nice communication between these two things. But I can't help it but to think of the cell, the image of the cell and the earth in kind of a similar way. As the earth struggles, I think our cells are struggling. As our cells are struggling, our earth is struggling. So the communication is getting glitchy. All right. So when it's working, it's like this happy guy here, right? He's got the big smile. That's the cell. That's the little dish that this antenna is up, and then it's receiving the signal. So it's all happy. And then once it receives, it can light up the cell like this, or it can have this is a little bit of blurry picture, but it can have these little shimmering, wiggly things that make their way to communicate. They can light up the receptor sites. I mean, your cell just rejoices with information, and that's how it works. Okay. So it's like all these star systems are going to light up your entire body when the receptor sites can receive and can do their jobs. But what happens is that the cellular receptor sites can get quite clogged up. So you can see it says clogged receptor sites at the bottom. If it's clean, you can see that those little blue boxes, right? They're not usually blue boxes, but think of them. Chris used the word ligand. Okay, ligands are basically your neurotransmitters or hormones or any of those messengers, right? The emails coming into your inbox, and the inbox receives it just fine because the internet's working, let's say. And then it goes inside the cell, through the cell walls, and then gets to communicate with the cell. But if it's clogged up, which is right here, and this is what's happening to almost all of us, and we'll tell you why that is, then the message that is your body is trying to send into the cell, they're not making their way in. So we have to do something to declog this. We got to support this, right? So then this was also a couple of the images that I had. I couldn't help it but to start thinking, okay, so these receptor sites are like a satellite dishes that have come down, broken down from the storm, or they've burnt, or they got rusty, or they got maybe sticky stuff on it, and they just can't function. So they become dysfunctional. That's when you could have your own endogenous hormones, the hormones that you already make, or you could be doing the hormone replacement therapy, but they're not quite doing their job because these guys are broken down, or, they're just not able to receive the message. Okay. So let's look at what causes receptor sites to dysfunction. And do you want to take over this, Chris?
Sure. So what we have to look at are the things that are the saboteurs, the things that sabotage that signal by blocking the connection either at the receptor site because one of these things fills it, or it covers it, or it even makes it so that the cell outside of the cell, the membrane, actually has fewer receptors for the particular thing that's needed, like the hormone. So this whole list is all, not even all, but it's a lot of the common things that we experience in our day-to-day lives that actually block this communication at the receptor site between the hormones and the cells. So just all kinds of pollution, heavy metals, which are included in that, very common ones that practically everyone on this call, if not 100% of us, has some of these in our bodies right now. Mercury, lead, arsenic, aluminum, excess copper. Things like chronic inflammation that happen when our bodies can't clear toxins out. Even impacts from viruses like COVID and other viruses that we are often exposed to just from being around people and being alive. Those can have an effect on those receptor sites. Oxidative stress, which is a kind of inflammatory stress in our cells that actually damages the receptors. Even foods and drink. So sugar in particular really causes inflammation. So do too many carbohydrates in our diets. Things like alcohol and smoking are going to increase toxins and inflammatory factors that are going to impact the receptors. And then just everyday stress, chronic stress, stress of all kinds. Our bodies don't care what the stress is. You could be having mental stress, emotional, psychological, physical, spiritual. It really doesn't matter. Environmental stress, what's going on around you? Is there mold in your space? All of those stressors are going to impact negatively the communication between your hormones and your receptors on your cells. Things like electromagnetic frequencies, EMFs, are also disruptors. They make the signal less available at the cellular level. And then finally on this list, we have EDCs, which are many of the things on this list, and also thousands of other things that are out there in our environment in the form of chemicals, which are called endocrine disrupting compounds, meaning they disturb the balance, they disturb the communication of our hormones and our cells. And then from there, let's just take a look at a few things that are specific to those EDCs, because these EDCs are everywhere in our world. There have been recent studies, many of them very recently in the last couple of years, that say this is universal now. 100% of us are exposed to some degree with these endocrine blocking and disrupting compounds. So just take a look at this slide very quickly. The number of things is astounding, okay? Starting at the left, 2,300 and more new synthetic chemicals are being created and manufactured and pumped out into our world every single year. And then just going clockwise from there, we're finding that newborn babies have over 200 of these synthetic chemicals in their blood from the time they're born, through the placenta, through the mother. Adults have over 700 of these compounds in their bodies that you can find in urine and blood tests at any given time, including microplastics. 80,000 different chemicals have been introduced into our physical environment since the end of World War II, and counting, because you can see the numbers are growing actually faster each year. And then in the United States in particular, we are spraying over 4 billion pounds of pesticides onto our food sources every single year. And of course, we don't escape that. It comes right back to our bodies. So all of these kinds of things and more are interfering with the signaling of our hormones. So not just the synthetic chemicals either. We've talked about a few of them now. So these are just some big categories that are creating the stress in our bodies and that are causing the need for us to have to clear and clean and remove and detoxify and cleanse. All of those things are really important. So I've mentioned a few of these. And you can see on this list, I'll just touch on a couple I didn't mention: forever chemicals that are being produced, and whether it's through cookware or pollution, the pollution from factories, things like viruses, fungal mycotoxins, medications. We don't talk about that often as being a blocker for hormone signals, but medications certainly are. Radiation, having a traumatic injury of some kind, microplastics that are everywhere now. We're seeing them in our bloodstream now at a very at growing levels, which is alarming. And then we see things like naturally produced substances like insulin, uric acid, or cytokines that we know are inflammatory markers. And those are starting to become elevated, and they are also now blocking the ability for the hormones to dock at those receptor sites. And then finally, even things like what's happened in our emotional lives and our psychological lives. I mentioned chronic stress, but even things like abuse or mental or emotional traumas all play a part, because when it comes down to it, I'm going to quote one of my favorite studies that came out where the lead author said that this was measuring how much our bodies and our minds are connected, our physical and our mental health. And this study that came out at the end of 2021 from Vanderbilt University, the lead author said at a biological level, there is no difference between mental and physical health, no difference, because they all become chemical messengers that our cells have to respond to. And if we have too much noise in our system, that blocks these receptors. And so what we're going to be talking about as we move forward is how to clean them up. So Masami, do you want to take it away from here?
Yeah, so step one. And before I do the step one, I think it's very important to remember, if some of you are starting to feel like you can't seem to connect with your deeper inner knowing space or intuition, or you feel like you were able to connect with the larger realm of things, deeper realm of things, and now these days you're starting to feel like, I just can't seem to tap into my intuitive place, or the connections getting lost. I work with mostly intuitive people and who are empaths and sensitives and beautiful channelers and beautiful people who are really wanting to communicate on the purest form. And if you're having harder time doing that, or you're starting to feel like your inner light feels a little bit dimmed down or dwindled, even though you want to bring that light to the world, the step one is the key, because we have to get the receptor sites to clean up. So clean and detox clogged receptor sites. Let's start with that. And the key is that we have to do this somewhat gently and effectively and safely, so that you can optimize your hormone receptor function. So we've been focused so much, maybe this is a kind of a masculine approach, let's say, to female hormones, but we've been trying to approach this by saying, we just have to look at the hormones. We got to take a look at the hormones, and we have to keep measuring the hormones, and what shows up on the markers. That's what we need to be focusing on. But I think the better approach that has really worked for us is that we need to ensure the healthy hormone signaling that's coming to your cell outer membrane and that receptor sites that's catching that information. We have to make sure that the receptor sites is functioning before we even go off in tweaking the hormones or doing bioidentical hormones or even a HRT. I have nothing against those things, by the way, everyone, nothing against it, as long as it's done in conjunction with supporting the receptor sites. I think you'll see a huge difference by doing that. But also, we're not here to we're not doctors, so we can't tell you, hey, do this or that, but it's just how you want to work with your own endogenous hormones. That comes from you supporting gently and effectively and safely of your receptor sites. And I love this quote from one of my favorite people on this earth, Dr. Lindsey Berkson. She has written 22 books on hormones and supporting women forever. Just wonderful, wonderful scholar as well as a physician. And we've been learning from her. We went to take her seminar. I just love her message. But she says testing hormone levels, whether it be in blood, saliva, or urine, doesn't matter unless the receptor function is working. Without clean receptor sites, hormones can't do their job. So this is the key, right? It doesn't matter. You can go get Dutch test done. You can go get your blood tested. You can do the saliva. You can go and do all these testing. But the fact is, they're not looking at if the messages are getting received. Maybe all your emails that you're sending to your inboxes, they're all going to your junk folder. Okay, that's why we need to go in and take a look at what's going on with your junk folder. So what cleans cell receptors, right? This is the most important message here. We've listed some major things that can really help clean the receptor sites, because that's why all of you are here. And we will introduce the supplements that Dr. Lindsey Berkson has formulated. After years of working with women's hormones, she has actually formulated these 2 supplements that we've been taking that's changing our lives, honestly helping us so much. But she has put in everything that you see in here. But you can see that the niacin is important, the flush kind, the niacinamide that doesn't flush you. That's important because that really helps with your blood flow and vasculature health as well. B6, I mean, I talk about B6 constantly, right? We're going to go into some of these examples shortly here, but we just wanted to show you some of this. And then, so I'm going to hand it over to Chris, and maybe he can go over 2 of the items from that list. We couldn't go through all of them because we don't have enough time, but we picked a couple that maybe you're interested in learning about. So let's start with the vitamin B6.
B6, as many of you know, especially if you've listened to Masami for very long, we talk about this all the time. B6 is such an important cofactor. It's something that makes the wheels turn, if you want to think of it that way. It's in virtually every enzyme reaction in the body, and it's absolutely necessary to complete the signaling that the hormones are doing when they meet the receptors. So when we're talking about keeping the receptor sites clean and keeping that signal to be clear all the way through, vitamin B6 is absolutely essential to that, because as you can see here, it's modifying how the hormone receptors are expressing and acting. Okay, so without B6, you don't have a signal. And it's especially important for our brain and neurological transmitters, our neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin. They're heavily dependent on B6 for our cognitive and our mood health. And then also B6 helps to upregulate, which means it dials it up, the glutathione production. Glutathione is the most powerful antioxidant that our bodies produce, mainly in the liver. And that's very important for keeping our bodies from inflaming. That's one of the big mechanisms of the body for anti-inflammation is glutathione. And so for our own cellular protection and defense, we have to have that. And the more B6, we need more B6 when we have too much estrogen. And this is male and female bodies. And these days we're seeing it almost equally, that we're having excess estrogen in male bodies as well as female bodies. And where it says estrogen-like compounds, these are things that come in from outside. There are a lot of those synthetic chemicals that we call xenoestrogens that behave on a molecular level. They look a lot like estrogen, so they can dock at the estrogen receptor sites on the cell even though they're not sending the same exact signal our body needs, they're sending a signal that's similar, and it can very much confuse our cells into doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And then finally, this last line is very important because we need to take a form of B6 that's bioavailable. So that's what this B6, the most active form, is this thing called P5P, pyridoxine 5-phosphate. You don't need to remember that, just P5P is enough. And that's what you want to look for, because that's the one our bodies can use without having to do the work of converting it from one form to another to another. Okay, so very important with B6.
Right. And then let's do the next one, because this is a very fascinating one. And I think not many of you have heard of this one.
Yeah, the calcium Dglucarate. So this is a form of calcium that's paired up with a protein transport molecule, the glucarate, the Dglucarate. And so what this form of calcium does is it really helps support our liver's ability to detox. And one of those key things that the liver is doing in that detox phase is pulling apart things like estrogen and other hormones so that they don't keep signaling cells again and again and again. So we need this calcium Dglucarate to support that process. We also need it to help our liver and our gallbladders and our bodies excrete the fat-soluble toxins. And those come out from the liver in through the bile, into the gallbladder, into the intestines. So this is a really important molecule to help with that process. And similarly, when we have excess estrogen or other hormones, they have to process through the liver. So they're going to be part of this pathway that the calcium Dglucarate helps to keep moving and flowing. And then, like I just mentioned on the last slide, this is a compound that helps to remove and reduce these xenoestrogens and other hormone mimicking kinds of toxins that we bring into our bodies by breathing, eating, drinking, and just being alive. So these environmental toxins have to be deactivated and removed and passed out of the body so they don't keep blocking our receptors and creating more inflammation.
So now that we've talked about cleaning the receptor sites, that's the first step, right? Without that, you will just be throwing all kinds of supplements at yourself, and they're just not going to be received. So you could be calling and leaving the messages over and over and over, but the fact is that the cell phone's messaging system is full, or the email's not reaching the right inbox, that kind of thing. So step 2 is to now support the health of cell receptor sites through your actions. So this is where you can come in with your day-to-day actions. And I've created a huge list, and I could even go on and on more with the list, but let's start with this list, okay? As you can see, it's a giant list, but actions to take. These are the actions that I want you to take so that you can support this body, okay? So poop and sweat regularly, right? Infrared saunas are great. Support your liver, well, which Chris already talked about a little bit there. Liver support, we will be talking about a little bit more on next Tuesday too, because we'll be talking about the metabolic cleanse that we're going to be doing together, 21-day metabolic cleanse together. So actions that you can take: receive direct sunlight. Without the sunlight, really, your hormones don't do a good job. So if you're indoors all day long, you don't get the sunlight. Even getting the vitamin D is great, but if you can just go step out, even on a cloudy day, just to get some light in your eyes can change the expressions of your hormones. Move your body and breathe. Add weights and maintain your muscles. So we've been talking a lot, for those of you that have been following our work for a while, we talk about sarcopenia, which is the loss of the muscles. So we have to build the muscles back up. And the muscles, as they deteriorate, your hormones are deteriorating, and vice versa. So if you're having issues as you're getting older, you're having more and more hormone issues, that also goes hand in hand with the loss of muscle tissues. So adding a little bit more muscle-oriented workouts, but also giving yourself enough protein so you can rebuild your muscles become very important. Avoid sitting for a long period of time. They've done some studies on how that impacts the health of your estrogen. Longer you sit, the more you're going to struggle with the estrogen issues. Avoid sugar and alcohol. We're going to be talking about the metabolic cleanse next Tuesday a little bit more, but this is so important to do some kind of a gentle, and I mean, we're going to do a very gentle cleanse for 21 days. After equinox, that's very important that you don't do a cleanse before equinox. So it makes me cringe when people are doing January cleanse, February cleanse, okay? Our bodies are not meant to be doing hardcore cleanses till after the spring equinox. So please know that. Okay. And then the fast, intermittent fasting is important, getting off the screen, avoid eating late into the night because you need to focus on the digestion. I'm not going to go into digestion in details here, but as you know, in order to poop, you have to digest well, right? Identify and avoid food intolerances. That's very important to find out if you have intolerance or food allergies, even around dairy or gluten or some other things. Even some people have allergies to pork. Okay. So you really need to find that out and figure it out. So that means maybe eliminating certain things and see how you feel. Eat organic always, and eat good cholesterol rich foods because cholesterol makes your hormones. Without cholesterol, you do not make hormones. Stop using plastics. Address candidiasis and other chronic infections. Lots of people have sinusitis. A lot of people have viral expressions that they need to be looking at. And the COVID really brought up your systemic infections up. So there's been a huge rise in viral expressions, other viral expressions after COVID. Long COVID. So if you have herpes, that might have come up. Shingles have come up. Epstein-Barr has come up. Okay. So that's because you have in the infections that's been there for a long time. So we need to be addressing those, plenty of purified water, obviously, and take high quality supplements that will nourish your cells, clean your receptor sites, which we'll talk about. So this is do the cleanse 2 times per year and join us. You can get the information by going to our website, and under supplements, Chris has created it says 15-day cleanse, and I've been asking Chris to change it to 21 days. But the fact is we're going to do it super slowly. That's why we're calling it the 21-day. But this system is supposed to only be 15 days. And we actually stretched it, and we just finished doing it yesterday, and we stretched it 30 days. So not 21 days, but we stretched it to 21 days. And I can tell you, I feel so much better because without cleaning your whole system out, your hormones cannot operate. Okay.
Masami.
So that information will come on Tuesday. And let me get to step 3, and then I will pause for a sec. So step 3, protect and enhance and nourish and maintain your I can never say that word. Endogenous, that's it. Endogenous hormones and hormone therapy. We have to enhance it. We have to nourish it. We have to maintain it. Your own hormone productions. And also if you're doing the HRT, the hormone replacement therapy and things like that, we have to enhance that. Okay. Sorry, Chris.
No, that's okay. I put the link for the cleanse. Many of you are actually already signed up. We've been working with some of you through our most recent program that just ended. But if you're not one of those people and you'd like to join, I put the link in there because we're also going to be including as part of the cleanse, just a group process that we're going to be supporting. And it's included with the purchase of the kit. So even though the kits, they're called a 15-day metabolic cleanse. That's what the product is called. And so we have found in our experience that stretching it out actually yields some interesting and subtle and maybe longer lasting benefits. And one of those things that I want to mention is that last slide that Masami was showing with all of the things that you can do, all the actions you can take. I know that all of you are here because you want to learn more about what you can do. And what I would encourage you to do is to move away from taking notes and move into the action steps, because it's actually, that's where the changes happen. We just came across a statistic in preparing for this presentation today, which was that people between the ages of 50 and 70 years old are losing about 70% of their cellular mitochondria. Those are the little bits, little organelles inside of the cell that produce the cellular energy. And so what that means is we're not as energized. We're 70% less energized starting around age 50. And yet, by practicing these things, by practicing doing a periodic cleanse a couple of times each year, we can actually start to rebuild our ability to create and have healthy mitochondria that are not toxic, because they rely on this cellular cleanse. They rely on communication with the hormones in order to do their jobs, which are producing energy and helping to protect the interior of the cell. So that's a huge part. And it's, I can tell you from my personal experience, I went from being as flat as a pancake emotionally and with energy to being able to come back to life. And so much of that has had to do with this cleanup process, taking these actions, doing the cleanses, cleaning up the diet. And it's taken a lot of time for me to go from the old me to where I am today. But I've said this before, I'll say it again. I feel better than I ever have in my adult life right now. Okay, sorry, Masami, that was a big aside, but back to you.
No, it's great. And then we'll talk more about this cleanse, everyone. We are literally asking you to purchase the kit, and we are going to take you through as a group 21 days. Like, it's basically, we're giving our time for free. You just buy the kit. That's it. You know, people said, no, you should be charging for your 21 days. We decided, you know, we've never taken anybody through a group cleanse before. We've only done it ourselves. And we thought, let's just give this cleanse kit and we will give our time. So that's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to be doing this together again. So we're going to be joining you again. And I decided to do this really slowly and gently, because you have to take gently and slow approach for your receptor sites as well, like I said earlier. And a lot of us are sensitive. A lot of us are very, you know, I get impacted by all kinds of things, and I cannot usually do cleanse that are hardcore. I can't. It really throws me off. So I decided to stretch out this cleanse. I literally cut in half, and some days I even did 1/4 of what was required. And you still eat normally, you still live your life. This is not a fast, everyone. You're not fasting at all. You're eating plenty. You make your own foods. And then I want to share some of our recipes. And as a group, I want you to share your recipes. We want to make it as a community so we can do this together, because too many of us are struggling these days.
We'll say a lot more about that on Tuesday. We'll say a lot more about that. Yeah.
Tuesday, we'll talk about that. So let's hop, okay, like this goldfish is doing, to the next. And then we're almost there, everyone. So hang in there. I know some of you, it's late. So what helps balance, protect hormones? I'm not going to go through each of this again, but these are some of the supplements. These are the nutrients that really, really balances and nourishes and protects your hormones themselves so that you can continue to produce healthy hormones. We don't want to be producing, you know, clogged up and toxic hormones. We need to have good, healthy hormones. So these are the things. And as you can see, B6 shows up again. Zinc is showing up again, right? But let's go through at least 2 items that maybe you are new to this. So I want to hand it over to Chris, but I want to say briefly about boron. So this was about 1.5 years ago. I actually came across, you know, I knew about boron because we do hair tissue mineral analysis and I was aware of it. But I decided to order boron from Zorex, which is one of the companies that we use for supplements. For some reason, I don't know, something intuitively was saying to me, get this thing called boron. And I didn't know why I needed boron. But I opened the box, I held the bottle of boron, and I just lit up. Like something inside me said, oh my God, I've been waiting for you, Mr. Boron or Mrs. Boron. So I want Chris to go through what boron does. But when you learn about boron, you're going to just fall in love with this little element called boron mineral.
That's quite a setup for boron, which sometimes sounds like boring. It isn't at all. So boron, just let's go through this together. It is so important in so many places of our bodies. How many of you have had hormonally connected osteopenia or osteoporosis? Well, there's a connection here. So boron is something that helps with that growth and maintenance of your bone tissue, and it's very much connected to what happens with especially estrogen, but with our sex hormones. It's also something that's important for wound healing, which includes repairing cell damage from inflammation, from oxidation. So we need it. It's very important for helping the body with the sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone and vitamin D. So it helps to convert the vitamin D into the form that we need to use. It boosts magnesium absorption, which is key for reducing blood sugar and stress effects. It raises the levels of all kinds of antioxidants in our bodies. Superoxide dismutase is the SOD, or catalase, or glutathione, which I mentioned earlier in the liver. All of those are very important for detoxifying our bodies. It helps to deal with the impacts of pesticides. I mentioned before, we have billions of pounds of pesticides that are in our environment, just in this country, in the US. And so they cause a lot of oxidative stress. And conjunction with that, we have a lot of heavy toxic metals in the air from pollution, from burning of all kinds of things. All of that gets in our bodies, and we need boron to help get it out. It helps with the brain's electrical activity, our cognitive performance. And this is particularly important as aging sets in, is that short-term memory is really boosted in the presence of boron because of how it helps the hormones communicate with cells. It really helps with the parathyroid function, which is part of the bone modeling process. Parathyroid hormone, very important. And then finally, it helps with promoting a healthy heart and the estrogen effects around the cells of the heart. So that's just one of them. Let's look at the next one also.
Yeah. Hold on. Oop, my computer just froze.
All right.
So
Well, then I can keep talking.
I might need to, yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment and then I'll come back. Okay, Chris, sorry.
That's okay. I can introduce it anyway while you're bringing it up. And the next one, some of you have heard of this one, I'm sure. And Masami, if you have problems, I can always share my screen.
Yeah, could you do that? Because yeah, it froze on me.
Okay, it'll take me just a second to set that up, but bear with me, everyone. What we're going to be talking about is PABA, which is also known as vitamin B10. So just give me a second.
So maybe many of you don't know, but we have a lot of B vitamins. You know about B1 and B2 and B3 is the niacin, and you know about B6 and all that. But basically we have, B12. So, we have all the way up to B12, but there's actually more than 12 B vitamins. So yeah, Chris, that looks good. And then let's go into PABA. But before you do, if you have, okay, there's a little disclaimer here around caution with the PABA. It doesn't impact most of us, but if you have a known severe SOFA hypersensitivities, or you're taking SOFA-based medications, PABA may not quite work with you. So then, definitely speak to your doctor about it. I have yet to see anybody have any issues taking the supplements that includes the PABA with my clients, but I just wanted to put a little disclaimer. And obviously all these supplements and things, if you're pregnant, if you're lactating, please consult with your doctor. Okay. Any of these things we're recommending, we're not your doctor. So please do talk to your physicians or your health provider. Okay.
So just looking at some of the things, this is a short list of a very long list of all the benefits that PABA brings to help nourish the effects of hormones by keeping their environment healthy and clean. Okay, that's what these supports are that we're really focusing on tonight. So PABA is something that strengthens the actions of the hormones. So that includes the hormones that the adrenals produce, which are often called glucocorticoid hormones. Those include the stress hormones we often think of: cortisol, adrenaline, aldosterone that regulates our sodium levels, and then also the sex hormones that we've talked about. It is something that it brings a leveling experience to the activity of our hormones. And what that means is it slows down their metabolism, the speed that they break down or the speed that they're circulating in our bodies. And that allows them to have a longer effect that's smoother. So it levels out the experience of our hormones acting in our bodies. For women's bodies in particular, it supports fertility. It's also supporting, again, the cellular, the antioxidant and immune functions. So we've talked about that in the last nutrient as well. And that's always important. When we're having the hormones connecting, the cells have to be healthy in order for the signal to reach its destination in the nucleus and tell the cell what to do. So having these antioxidant functions inside of the cell and the cellular immune support is so vital. Thyroid function is very important for hormonal communication throughout the body. And also these last two are really interesting to me, is that as we age, particularly our heart, our kidneys, and our brains start to be impacted by what's called fibrotic as tissues, or not tissues, but the formation of fiber-like structures. And what that does is that makes things less stretchy, it makes them less permeable, and it's a sign of aging, oftentimes, is how your doctor is going to see that. And so what the PABA helps do is to reduce that fibrosis of the heart, kidneys, and brain, which helps with all these other functions that we've talked about: cardiovascular, the clearance of the renal function, and also brain and cognitive health. And then finally, this one is important for a lot of us, is that it helps our skin to naturally be radiant by boosting the oxygen levels. And it's particularly in the skin that PABA has its effects. All right.
I think PABA has been a game changer for me as well.
Yeah. So let's go
through the next one, because I'm looking at the time and we don't want to keep everybody too late. Sorry, we had a really long day, so we just couldn't start any earlier. But this is my, it just makes me smile, Dr. Lindsey Berkson. I just love this lady. So she looks exactly like this, everyone. When I met her in Berkson, I wanted to show her photo because I wanted all of you to guess how old she is. So put in the age that you think. She literally looks like that. She is not faking it. She looks like that. She's got beautiful, strong muscles. She could teach for 10 hours straight on the weekends. I mean, she's incredible. Okay. Just please. Yeah. 45, 60. What else? Give me more. 60, 70, 60. What else you got? Come on, just look at her. If you saw her on the street, okay, start judging, start not to say, okay, she's been working for a long time and she's talking about hormones. 53. Okay, that's an interesting number. Yeah, 56, right. Okay, so one more, 55. All right. So she is 74 years old. All right. So she is 74 years old.
There we go.
Thank you, Chris. I don't know what happened. So when I met her, and then she is not a touchy-feely person, but at the end of the course, she looked at me, she said, "Can I give you a hug?" And she gave me a big hug. And she said, "I'm not like this usually." But, I was beaming so much love at her that I think she wanted to hug me too. And I wanted to hug her too. But when she told me her age, I said, you know what? I have to learn from this lady. What is she doing? I want to be like her. Not just how she looks, but her brain. Oh my gosh, she has this incredible knowledge stuffed in her brain. She can talk for hours, days, and the energy that she illuminated the room with, I was in love with. So I just wanted to share.
Yeah, she fills the room. She fills the room with her energy, and she's able at her age, which her whole point is, why should we say that, at her age. Why do we even need to say that? That's what she's saying.
Why?
She's still
Right.
full of life, and she credits this to bringing her hormones back online. And she's the one that formulated what we're going to share with you now. And so you can
And
see her.
this is what we're taking. So let's
Yeah,
go to
we are
that.
using these, and since we've been using them, it's been a game changer, not because it's giving us hormones, but it's because it's allowing the hormones our bodies are already producing to work the way that they need to work, to communicate with our cells the way they need to. So I'm going to jump to the next slide
Yes.
here. Masami, do you want to do this one or have me do it?
No, you can do that,
Okay.
but remember the receptor detox, everyone, all those list of supplements that we showed you on the step 1 with the niacin and B6 and things like that, that's all in there. That's all in there. Everything is in there. Support for hormone receptor functionality to help foster healthy hormone signaling. Let's go through those next slides a little bit more quickly, Chris.
Yep. So we've already talked about the key nutrients on the previous slides that help the hormones to bind with their receptors, clear off the junk, the toxins that are blocking the receptors, and then making sure that these receptors are optimized for their functionality and that they're working safely to do what they're supposed to do without other things getting in the way. That's what those bullets are saying there. The other product, which was from step 3, I believe. Yes, step 3.
Step 3. Mm-hmm.
So this is the one that's going to help provide a healthy environment for your hormones to do their job. Okay, so this is supporting, nourishing, balancing, and making it possible for your own hormones that you produce, the endogenous hormones that you naturally make, as well as if you're on bioidentical hormones, even the HRT, which is a little bit different with the equine hormones. So these 2 products alone are so vital. They are in our everyday rotation. And one last thing about the Hormone Balance and Protect product is that this is the one that helps to enhance the bioavailability. That's the key word, bioavailability. It means what your body has access to. If you're taking a whole bunch of supplements, I mean, we've gone down that road in the past too. You can overload your body with supplements, but if it's not absorbing them and putting them in the right place at the right time, that's bioavailability, you're not really gaining from them. So we have to be able to use what we're putting in our bodies. And finally, this Hormone Balance and Protect, it supports the overall picture of what's going on with our hormones. The receptor functionality, once again, the right timing, that's the key. They have to be there at the right time and for long enough for that signal to make it all the way through the cell. And then that's it right there. They have to be there on time and they have to be there long enough to get that signal through. Okay, so I'm going to just go to this last screen, and this is our last slide for today. So we'll wrap up here with a few comments. And then thank you everybody who's been able to join us. I will say that now before we go on, but this last slide here, you can follow these links. Like I've mentioned, like Masami has mentioned, you can go to the masamicovey.com supplement orders. It's right on the main navigation, and you can navigate to this full script site, which is the link below here. That's where we're going through right now. And so you can actually find these 2 supplements on full script anytime through this. And we encourage you to use these because, like we said, what they contain, if you use these regularly, they will make a difference. You've got to do it over time, though. Okay, it takes time. We've been doing it for a while. And so the benefits of it accumulate. So you have to stick with it and not get frustrated if you're not seeing magical results after a day or a week or even a month. Okay, give it at least 3 to 6.
I would give at least 3 months. We started to see the difference, I would say, within 3 months, tremendous difference. Now we've been doing this for quite some time now. She formulated this last summer, by the way, last summer. So as soon as she formulated, as soon as I heard her, we started taking it. Chris didn't even know anything about it. I said, "You're going to start taking this."
That's
and
right.
it literally changed our lives. So it's not even been a year, and I feel amazing. So I just wanted to share this, and I want you want to stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, and there are a couple of questions that are really good. One was about having a complete hysterectomy at age 38, will it still work for me? The answer is yes, because even without that primary organ of the uterus to create the sex hormones, what happens anyway is, whether it's through natural menopause or it's even through a hysterectomy, your adrenal glands actually pick up the production primarily of the sex hormones after an event like that. So you're still producing those hormones. And so the key is still the same thing that we've been saying, which hopefully stuck in this presentation, is you need your receptors to be clean, clear, and nourished so that they can receive the signals that now your adrenal glands are producing with those sex hormones.
So
And-
can I say a couple things here? Okay. So for those of you from Canada or in Europe or in the UK, we purposely listed all the ingredients for you on this presentations because you cannot get these unless you're in the US, okay? Because the approval process and everything takes time. That's why we listed them all for you. And for during the cleanse, what we're going to do, 21-day cleanse, I am actually, for those of you that are interested in, you don't have to do it. I'm going to incorporate those 2 bottles, the Receptor Detox and then the Hormone Balance and Protect. And we're going to use them strategically to incorporate them into this cleanse. So we're going to take them in a very different way so that it actually helps with the cleanse side of it. And then we are going to start to help with the hormone side. So if you do have those 2 bottles with the 15-day cleanse kit, we're going to incorporate all that together. So you will learn how to use them 2 times per year during your cleanse, but also how to use them in the rest of the time. And for those of you that are asking how to take them, once you order from the full script will have what the manufacturer is recommending. But obviously you want to check in with your own body. You know, I check in with my own body. I don't usually follow the recommendations that they give on those, manufacturers' recommendations, because I'm a small person. I'm very sensitive. I actually cannot take the dose that they tell you to do. I usually cut them in either 1/3 of the amount or maybe at least a half. Sometimes I only take 1/4 of what they tell you to do, but that's going to depend on the person. So we're not going to tell you exactly how to take them, because when you order them, they will have the information listed there. You can follow that, or you can take little less and see how it goes. Okay. But during the cleanse, I will actually specifically go into them and guide you through if you want to do a little bit more hormone support. And I wanted to see if I'm sharing the screen at all. Oh, no, I'm not sharing the screen. I wanted to share our website so that they can see how to get to the supplement page one more time. Hysterectomy question, I want to make sure that obviously you want to talk to your doctor. Hysterectomy can really mess up your sex hormones. So you want to really, really support that for the rest of your life. And these 2 supplements are very, very helpful. According to Dr. Berkson, she says it's so helpful for women with hysterectomy. So helpful. And she's seen the changes in people that she's been working with. I'm starting to see, even though I have not been taking this for a year even, I've been actually recommending this for several of my clients, and I'm starting to see huge difference in a lot of these women that are actually doing bioidentical hormones, or they haven't been doing any of that, but they're starting to come out of the dark place that they've been in. So I highly recommend it. This is really it's not a hormone therapy, as you can see. This is to help the receptor sites to communicate better, to support the hormones you already produce, to produce quality hormones so they can communicate better. That's all these supplements are doing. Okay, so this help best to start here with the adrenal exhaustion. Also, when does cleanse start? Cleanse will start at the end of the month, and we will be announcing that a little bit more clearly on the next Tuesday's call, because we decided to do this, and we still have to create the Facebook group, the private group, and things like that. But we're going to start the cleanse at the last week of March. So it's going to be not next week, but the week after. And we want to try to start around Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday, so that you have time to adjust and then go into the weekends, even though this is a very gentle cleanse and you will be able to live your normal life, no problems.
So Masami,
Okay.
I'm going to go
Chris,
through this. This is
yeah.
just a quick tour from our homepage. So masamicovey.com, and you're looking for the very first tab, which is supplements. If you would like to sign up for the 15-day metabolic cleanse, you can go right there and you can learn some more. You can take a self-assessment and find out about the toxic symptoms. We're going to be covering this all on Tuesdays, so you can go through this on your own time if you'd like to and learn a little bit more before Tuesday's call. But for supplement ordering in general, you can visit the second link, supplement ordering, that I just clicked. And here, for if you're living in the US, Fullscript is, we have two main sources that we're using. The ones that we just talked about today, we would recommend that you just go ahead and do that through Fullscript. And so when you do that, just click on this big button here that says set up your account. If you already have your account, you can still click that button or just go to Fullscript. We appreciate it, of course, if you use our link, because there are a lot of people using Fullscript these days, since you've gotten this information through us. So please just honor that as you're going through. And if you want to sign up, go ahead. All you have to do is put your name and email and create a password and then set your account. The products are the ones that we talked about right there at the end: the Hormone Balance and Protect and Receptor Detox. Okay, so
yeah, and so Karen asked when to Fullscript, but what am I ordering? I am actually gonna plug in what you're ordering, but those two bottles that the Chris just repeated, right? So Hormone Balance and Protect, and also Receptor Detox. Those are the two bottles, right? So I've added it to your account for you, Karen, and I am actually, as we speak, I am sending you the email. So you will receive it. You're going to get 10% off, and I updated it. So take a look at your email after you get off this call. All right. Okay. So any other questions coming in? Anybody that want to raise your hand and ask? I hope this gave you a little bit more hope that there's hope, but also, you know, if we don't clean up our kind of the earth, same thing with the earth, isn't it? We have to clean up the cell space, the receptor sites, the outer space of that earth, the cell. Otherwise, you could be throwing all kinds of supplements at yourself, all kinds of nutrients at yourself, hormones, but they may not receive the message. And that is the key. And that blew my mind when I heard Lindsey Berkson talk. I thought, she is talking about something that nobody's talking about. And that's why we always try out the supplements on ourselves first. We do the cleanse first. We've done the cleanse before, because if we don't agree with what we're doing, then we can't promote it. But you can see how excited we are to be talking about these two products, right?
let's take one quick hand and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
So Barbara has a question. Masami, you're good to take that live?
Yeah, I was reading the chat.
Okay, so Barbara, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you, Melissa. Yes.
Hi there.
Yeah,
Okay, hi Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
Yeah, I posted in the chat because I was actually ordering it, and the only country that shows is US. It doesn't allow for Canada. There's no.
So Barbara,
I answered that question, Barbara, a little bit earlier. I said this is not sold in Canada or the UK or Europe. That's why we purposely listed all the ingredients that she put together in these bottles in those slides. So the only way that you can do this is literally going to get all these supplements separately. That's the only thing we can do right now. Okay. So it's very unfortunate.
it may change, but because this is a new product, it takes much longer for the licensing to happen across borders. So we're hoping, and there is some talk, even Dr. Berkson mentioned she's hoping this will happen too in the next year. So maybe by the end of this year or next year, we'll see that licensing happen, and then it will become available in Canada first, and then probably the UK after that. So if you can just stand by, but pay attention to these things we've talked about, because some of these nutrients can also help in that process in the meantime. Okay, you can still start to help.
Barbara,
Okay.
intuitively, you need a lot more B vitamins, So just kind of start with upping your B vitamins. I think that could be a good start for you. Okay.
Okay,
I know
thank you.
it's frustrating, but it's been frustrating for us too, because we've been contacting the Biotics Canada. I've been on the phone with them multiple times in the past week, and they're just like, we just can't we don't have that option right now, is what they kept saying to us. So we just have to kind of stay and wait on that one. But we've listed all the ingredients for you, so you can start there. Okay. And so yeah, thank you, Barbara. And one more thing, everyone, we
Hey, I'm Masami. Hold on. You got muted somehow.
okay. So, sorry. One more thing, everyone, is that during the cleanse, we will be sharing some recipes, but one of the recipes is our favorite recipes that many of you have seen.
Okay, Masami.
Or, received the PDF in the past.
You froze for a second, Masami. Let me just recap where you froze. You were about to say the recipe that many of you have seen
and received in the PDF, which is the cilantro and parsley paste thing, the green pesto.
Yeah.
No, it's not a paste, pesto. We use that often. And the reason is it's because it can really clear your heavy metals, and it can help you with your hormones. That's why we eat that very often. And then we actually make them quite often. Okay. But we will be sharing that recipe again during the 21-day cleanse. Okay. Any other questions that coming through the chat that we need to answer?
Yeah, so let's see, it was Marilena asked a question about the best way to sign up to get the cleanse and supplements is under Masami Covey. Yes, because number one, that will help us if you go through Fullscript through the link that we provided. Secondly, with the cleanse, we are only having people that sign up through the website have access to the free program that we're supporting for 21 days. So you can do it by yourself. You can order it somewhere else, potentially, but ordering it through us, you're going to have the ability to participate in this supported process that will have a community attached to it that's going to be interacting together. So that's why we ask you to go through the website and the links that we provided.
Well, and then I think, I just want to be very upfront, everyone, is that these kind of cleanse kits, we're not doing it to make money, because we really don't make money on those cleanse kits. Okay. And if you order them from Fullscript or somewhere else and you're getting a huge discount, we just can't do 21 days for free for you. We have to, this is our livelihood. This is how we pay for our bills as well. That's why we're asking you to order the kit and then join us in this 21-day cleanse. If you buy it through masamicovey.com under the supplement section, you'll find a 15-day cleanse kit. And, you can always find things cheaper, possibly. I don't know. But the thing is, I think we put so much effort into creating things, coming up with programs. This is all free, so that you can learn. And so what we are asking you is that if you're going to do the detox, not detox, but the cleanse with us for 21 days, please purchase it from our website. So that supports our programming, so that it supports all our free work that we are putting into this world. I think there's something that is glitchy that is happening on this earth, where there's too much free content. Everybody wants free. Everybody wants everything. And we, small group people like us, we could use some help. We could use some support. So we're not raising the price on the kit. That is the price that it's sold in through biotics and then everything else. We're not raising the price. We're not even adding anything to it. We just ask you that you buy the kit through masamicovey.com. You'll be automatically included into our 21 days program where we can support one another. I'll be sharing more information then too. It's just, yeah, that's all I have to say. So hopefully you get the point that, you know, please do that. Okay.
Yeah. And likewise with ordering supplements through FullScript, same thing. It's really helpful to us if when we provide the information on calls like this, that you use the link from us. Okay. That's the one thing that we're asking. So thank you for those of you that have done that. There's one last question, then we should go. Thank you for those of you that have stuck with us. Melissa has asked a couple of questions about adrenal exhaustion. She asked a question earlier about if the cleanse could be supportive to that. And, you know, one of the things, Melissa, I'll start, and I know Masami will have something to say here as well, is that when you're having adrenal issues, so adrenal insufficiency is something that it's a complex. It's something that happens from years of chronic stress. Your body is really struggling to get the energy that it needs to be healthy and to function. You might be operating at only 40% of your metabolic capacity right now when you're starting to feel those symptoms. To answer the question about hormones and what we're talking about today, clearing your hormone receptors does help, because the thyroid hormones are the ones telling your cells to either dial up or down the energy levels of what they're producing. So that's a huge component, is the thyroid's role in the adrenals working so hard. Because the more tired you feel, the more blocked your cell receptors are to hormones, the harder your glands like the adrenals and the thyroid have to work to communicate. And they're pumping out all these hormones, but they're not reaching their destination to do the job. So detoxifying and taking these steps that we walk through today will be very helpful.
Yeah. And Melissa, the adrenal insufficiency is a big thing that we have to talk about. But the whole point is that when you go into perimenopause and onward, your adrenals are the ones that have to take care of your sex hormones, right? In addition to other stress hormones and other things that the adrenals have to produce. So by doing the cleanse, which I do get yes on, but also doing those 2 supplements, I think they can be really, really helpful, because your adrenals are exhausted because they have to do everything now. And also the cleanse, the metabolic cleanse, is very targeted towards the liver and the whole cellular system. So it really helps to clean your liver. And without the clean liver and the clean bile flowing through, your thyroid has no way of recovering from hypothyroid. And without the liver being healthy, you can't balance blood sugar and detox. Then who's going to be struggling with that? Your adrenals, right? So they all go together. So my recommendation is that you try the cleanse and try those 2 bottles, the hormone support side, but you do the cleanse slowly, because that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to do it super slowly because I'm sensitive. Okay. So hopefully that will help to answer that. But I don't know. I don't know you personally, so I can't give you more than that. But would they help your adrenals? Absolutely. Okay. Taking the crap out of your system is always going to help your adrenals. Okay.
All right.
And Marlena said, Masami, so appreciate your integrity about who get your info from. These webinars can surely pay for the supplements, cleanse products. Thank you, cutie Cutie patootie.
Cutie patootie. She is cutie patootie.
I have never read that word, those combinations of words before. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, that's sweet.
Thank
Okay.
you all. Thank you, Sue, for your comment. And thank you so much for all of you for joining us today. We went a little bit long, but hopefully this helped to just bring some context and education to this process. It's a very complicated topic, but you can start having a very, very strong effect in a positive way on your hormone health starting right now. So hopefully you can take this information and start using it tomorrow.
And then we will post the recording probably later tomorrow because we need to go to bed tonight. So we're not going to post it tonight, but look for them. We will be sending out the link to look at it on the YouTube. I think we're going to just post it on the YouTube anyway, but we will let you know once it's up. Okay. And join us for next Tuesday for the cleanse. And they go hand in hand together. So join us and we will do another very informative sessions to help you metabolically cleanse, because if we don't do that, no amount of supplements are going to help. I think it would be a waste of money to keep taking more supplements if you're not cleaning out your receptor sites and your cellular functions. All right. So we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful evening.